My name's Nancy. I'm 37 and female, and my little sister Bailey, she's 33. She's basically the only family I have left after my parents have passed away. Well, the reason I'm posting here today is because my little sister has two kids, which she basically just disappeared, ghosted them, leaving them with me, and she said, "Hey, don't worry, sister. If you don't want to watch my little brats, send them to an orphanage." And the one thing I haven't told you guys yet is the reason my mother passed away, I think, so young, is because of her sky-high blood pressure from all the years dealing with Bailey, my little sister. Well, guys, it gets even crazier. I'm not giving the kids to an orphanage at all. It's just not going to happen. So imagine my surprise when I raise these kids. They turn out to be amazing human beings and they're in their 20s now. And I find out all these years Bailey has been getting child support and pretending like she was the one who raised them when she was traveling the world doing who knows what with who knows who.
In life, it's people you treat with love, take care of their mess, and stand with them even in bad times that reciprocate us with evil. I could not believe my sister took everything I did for her for granted, and showed her how ungrateful she was when things turned out the way that they did. As children, Bailey was someone I played with all the time, not because she was my only sibling, but simply because she was clever and fun to be with. Bailey was the most active child at home. She was literally everywhere and did everything, and my mother loved her so much. And us. Especially Bailey, though. Our father passed away after Bailey was born. She treated us with so much love and taught us a lot about sisterhood, how sisters should always just look out for each other and the importance of being each other's backbone. You know, all those heart-touching words parents tell their children, so it can help them bond, and I just love each other more. Those words got to me, and I spent the rest of my life looking out and after Bailey, and covering up whatever trouble she got into while she got to live this kind of lifestyle that she wanted. Bailey grew up thinking that she was special, because, well, that's what her mother told her, and believed everyone she met would treat her specially. It all started at home, where Bailey would skip doing chores, and at the end of the day, my mother would make me do them because Bailey was either too tired to work or she said she didn't feel like it. When this started, I thought it would only be for the days that she was feeling fine, but it never ended. When she realized someone else could do her chores while she could spend time with her friends, she just stopped helping around the house altogether. I complained to my mother, but she did not do much about it. Instead, she explained that some people were different and said, and I quote, "While I love doing chores and cleaning the house, maybe Bailey didn't, and there was nothing wrong with that." Honestly, that was the last thing I was expecting to hear from her, and out of anger, I told her I was not doing the chores anymore because they had become such a burden for me. Well, that resulted into me being grounded for a week. As time passed, Bailey and I got more distant. She always hung out with her friends or boyfriend, while I spent time at home sleeping, reading, or doing the chores. I was/still am an introvert, and the only place you could catch me was school. On the other hand, Bailey was a social butterfly. As I mentioned earlier, she was everywhere. There was no house party or birthday party that was happening in school back then that she did not attend, and most times she would stay late at night. She started keeping late nights from age 14, and even at the time, my mother did not see anything wrong with Bailey's attitude. I was the only one who saw what Bailey was becoming, and each time I tried to complain to my mother about Bailey, she would make it seem like I was jealous or hated Bailey, and at one point I had to stop. Years later, my mother opened up that she allowed Bailey to act the way she wanted because Bailey reminded her of the childhood she never had. But it was already too late because Bailey had gotten out of control. Around the same time, she started keeping late nights and she started hanging out with the wrong crowds of people. And at the young age, she started making these terrible decisions. The first was dropping out of school in her senior year of high school, and the second was moving out of the house when my mother began kicking against her lousy lifestyle. These people that she hung out with were people who dropped out of school, and since Bailey was a people pleaser, mostly strangers, never family, she was very easy to influence. The first time Bailey had a nasty fight with our mother and moved out of the house, my mother was so worried. But I wasn't as worried as she was because she played a significant role in how Bailey turned out. I knew with the way that she was overlooking Bailey's mistakes, never grounded her, and allowed her to do the things that she wanted. While I was grounded for the slightest mistake, I knew it would not end well for her. When Bailey started returning by 1, 2 in the morning, and she would call me to help her open the front door, I was not happy. I didn't know my sister anymore, and she became a concern. Most times, she would come home with a strong alcoholic breath, and if I warned her to stop drinking so much, she would call me boring, and would go on to say that she was glad she was not me because my life was boring and had no fun in it. Funny enough, 2 weeks after she left home, she came home one hot Sunday afternoon looking unkempt and miserable. I was the only one at home when she returned, so I had to call our mother to come back home. When my mom returned, she was so happy Bailey returned and forgave her instantly. In addition, she took Bailey for a haircut, and she even got her new clothing. Well, we woke up on a Tuesday morning and Bailey was gone. She took all the new stuff my mom got her and even took some money from my mom's purse. It was another heartbreaking moment for my mother, and I hated to see her like that. People told us that Bailey was only acting her age, and it was normal for teenagers to run away from home and return as she did. So, my mom became less worried, and we hoped that Bailey would return soon. Eventually she did, and each time she came home, she acted and deceived my mom that she would not leave again. But the next day, or a couple days after, she would leave. I think it was the 4th or 5th time Bailey returned home that we noticed her alcoholic addiction. She carried a flask around, and we thought it was water each time she took a sip. It was the summer season, and it was normal for people to walk around with water bottles. It wasn't until we got close to her that we knew that she's been drinking alcohol the whole time. This was another heartbreak for us, especially for my mom, because we knew we could not monitor her and help her break out of the addiction. We tried to help her, not the kind of help she wanted though, and when she left the house that day, she did not return until 2 years later. Because of Bailey, my mother had high blood pressure. She thought about Bailey every night and day and wondered if she had destroyed her daughter's future by her own hands. I don't know if Bailey would have turned out differently if my mother did not let her get too much freedom at a very young age. I don't. Or maybe it was just her personality and not even a strict upbringing would change her. Eventually, I graduated from high school, went to college, and got a good job that helped me support my mother. In college, I came home every weekend because I knew it was a terrible idea to leave my mother alone. She'd slowly entered into depression, but she was still holding on because of me. The day Bailey returned, my mother and I were shocked to see her. Her entire body was covered in tattoos, and we could barely recognize her because she had dyed her natural black hair blonde. We knew she would stay because she came here with a big box and barely a year-old baby. That's right. And my mother broke down in tears, but I had to be strong. The whole day, Bailey came home. None of us could speak to her. We just sat in the living room and asked the questions with our eyes. It turned out, Bailey, well, she had gotten pregnant, and it was a more reason she refused to come home. Her alcohol addiction grew very strong, and without telling us, we knew she was terrible for her son, Jude. She named him after our late father, and when she returned, we tried as much possible to take care of her, but after about 2 months' time, she abandoned her baby and left, and would just return whenever she felt like it. She continued like that, and my mother could not convince or persuade her to do otherwise. As if having one child was not enough, When Jude was 3 years old, she returned home with another pregnancy for another man, and she gave birth to another boy. By this time, I was already married to the love of my life, and our marriage was barely 2 years old. Unfortunately, my happiness was short-lived, and my ex-husband was involved in an accident that took his life, and my life just never remained the same again. On the other hand, my mother was responsible for caring for her 2 grandsons. Although it was difficult for her, it gave her a reason to keep living. She completely gave up on Bailey, and we hoped that one day she would come back to her senses. After the tragedy that happened to me, I moved in with my mother to take care of my nephews. I just needed their company because I was slowly becoming a shadow of myself. I even assisted my mother in every way possible and was very available in my nephews' lives. I showed up at all their school activities, and we celebrated their birthdays, got them gifts, and never allowed them to feel their mother's absence. Bailey even got worse when she knew she could leave her children with our mother and still live the life she wanted. Although she changed a bit after giving birth to Barry, she came home one day and told us she was traveling to a different country just to be with her new boyfriend. At this time, our mother was very sick and could not handle a lot of stress, which was more reason that I moved in with them. Unfortunately, 3 months after Bailey traveled, our mother passed away in her sleep. It was one of my life's most challenging and loneliest moments because I had to plan the burial alone, with just a few family and friends to help. Most of the family members acted like they were not concerned, and I had to carry the cross alone. I called Bailey multiple times and informed her about our mother's demise, but she never showed up for the preparation. She only came to the day of the burial and disappeared the same day. I badly wanted to talk to her about her children because I did not see myself caring for my nephews, but she did not even take my phone calls. I sent her numerous voicemails and she never responded to any of them. I was frustrated, overwhelmed, and could not blame the poor children for their mother's terrible decision. Even though I did not see myself caring for those boys, I did not have the mind to just abandon them like their mother. It would have haunted me for life. Also, I knew if Bailey came to get them, she would be a terrible influence on them, and I just did not know the kind of environment she would raise them in. Eventually, I decided to raise them alone since, they were only family that I had left, including Bailey. While preparing for my late mother's burial, I realized that most family members were just numbers and nothing more, and it opened my eyes to many, many things. Fortunately, I did not have to pay rent because my mother owned the house, so I just focused more on being the mother they did not have. And I made a lot of sacrifices to see those boys grow. I never missed celebrations of a birthday, no matter how small, and I provided everything they needed, even if it meant sacrificing my own wants and needs. I paused my life for my nephews and ensured they went to good schools. I did 2 more jobs besides my main job just to take care of them, and I won't say it was easy because it wasn't. There were days I had to look after them even when I didn't want to, and even on my sick days, I remained strong and did the things that I had to do. As heartbreaking as it is, Bailey's first visit was 2 years after our mother's burial. She came home feeling remorseful, and her kids were happy to see her. She claimed she was changed and sober, but I'll tell you guys right now, that was a lie. It was only a matter of time before she disappeared on us again. There was even a time she stayed with us for a few months, and the kids and I were so darn happy that she's changed. But later on, I realized that she stayed with us because she simply had no place to stay and she was just fighting with her current boyfriend. In fact, anytime she crashed at our home for more than a week, I figured she had no place to stay. Meanwhile, I was the one who took care of her whenever she came to live with us. She refused to work or even do chores in the house because she believed, and I quote, special people were meant to be treated specially. Even my young nephews were more helpful around the house than she was. I raised them to be respectful, Disciplined and simply to be kind, I did not give any special treatment to the oldest or my youngest, and just treated them the same and did not overlook any mistakes. You might think that I was hard on them, but I wasn't. I only did what had to be done. I mean, they were allowed to keep friends, bring home or visit their friends, but no one was allowed to stay out beyond 7 p.m. It was a rule. As the children grew a bit older, they realized who their mother was and just knew she was not reliable. In fact, whenever Bailey came home after being away for months, we would hide all our valuables because we knew she would take something. One time, she even took Barry's piggy bank, and by the time we found it was missing, she was gone. Bailey often came home and asked me to lend her some money. Even though I never wanted to, I had to. If not, she would resort to stealing from me and would end up taking more than she asked. All of these continued for years, and I did not remarry because I was still hurting from my late husband's demise and was already too attached to my nephews. I ended up single-handedly raising them, and when June clocked 15, I started becoming worried for them, mainly because of college. And yes, while Jude knew who his father was, Barry did not. And I just felt awful for him. I didn't know how to explain why his older brother saw his father sometimes, and he didn't even know who his father was. A couple days ago, I was resting in my room when I overheard Jude arguing on the phone. He was speaking very disrespectfully, and I needed to know who it was and why he spoke in this manner. It turned out it was his mother, Bailey. And when I asked to find out what the problem was, he told me he needed money for something but did not want to bother me. It turned out that Jude asked his father for the money first, and he told him to ask his mother. None of that made sense to me until Jude revealed that his mother had been receiving child support from his father. And it explained why this father barely contributed to his welfare, and I just used to believe he was either stingy or did not care about his son. I thought it was a joke, until I spoke to Jude's father concerning the child supports, and he revealed he had been paying child support since Jude was 3. Right now, I'm so angry, and all I want to do is confront Bailey. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So today's story is not like a story we've covered. It involves some very, very deep problems in this family and this household, and we just learned a shocker about Bailey at the end of this story. Before we hop into the update, if you guys are not subscribed to the channel and you want daily videos, it's simple. Hit that subscribe button. Go ahead, hit those bell notifications as well because I post every single day. Thank you for joining me on today's story. There's multiple updates, so let's hop into update number 1. Hey everyone. Sorry for taking so long to update. I read your comments and it means a lot to me, especially since I did not have any other family members to turn to. So, I confronted my younger sister, Bailey, and asked her if it was true that she was receiving child support from Jude's father, and she said yes. She did not show remorse and acted like it was normal just to have another person suffer and take care of her children while she received the child support. I was so mad at her and felt hurt and betrayed, and I know how much I suffered to take care of her boys. Guys, I literally paused my life to be there for her kids, and all this while she's been receiving child support from Jude's father without dropping a penny. Instead, she would loan money from me, which she never paid back. I was so angry and said many things to her, but she did not care. To shock you guys, she doesn't care if Jude goes to college. Her younger son, Barry, is still in high school, and she's just blatantly said that he could drop out of school if the responsibility of caring for him was too much for me. After all these years, I cannot believe she said this to me. Out of pure anger, I slapped her. Gosh knows, I've wanted to do that since we were teenagers, and it was such a relief. I was not exactly expecting her to retaliate, but she did. Oh boy, did she ever. And things got a bit messy. Thankfully, her oldest son Jude was at home, and he was able to separate us, and she stormed out of the house in anger. But before she did, I told her I wanted her to pay back all the money she got from Jude's father, but she laughed and walked out. I hate that Jude had to witness all of our verbal exchanges, but it had happened, and he even heard when she said Barry could drop out of high school and Jude did not need to attend college, and I know it's heartbreaking for a child to hear that from the mother. As for your comments, I did not know I could sue her in court for spending all the child support money while I cared for them. Thank you so much for that commenter. I mean, I don't really want to jump directly to suing her because I fear it might affect our relationship forever. But if I try to talk to her again and she doesn't respond, I will take the necessary action, you know. Anyways, it's been 2 weeks since I saw her last, but I will ensure I update once I see her again. Update number 2. Hey guys, I saw Bailey 2 days ago, and this time I got another major heartbreaking news. I'd been calling her for weeks, and the few times she responded, she told me she was not in the country. Guess what? I bumped into her in the shopping mall near my second workplace. Funnily enough, she responded to my voicemail that morning and claimed she was not in the country. When I saw her, I was a bit confused and was not sure she was the one, maybe her twin, until I approached her and the older man she was shopping with. Surprisingly, the man was not covered in tattoos like she's usually going for and did not have multiple piercings like she did. He looked responsible and was kind enough to carry their shopping basket. I mean, he even looked to be in his early 50s. If you think I acted all cool with her, well, you're mistaken and you obviously haven't been listening to the story. My head was literally on fire when I saw her there smiling and being all clingy. The surprise on her face was evident when she saw me, but she acted cool, played it so cool. Her boyfriend, or whatever you want to call him, could tell I was unhappy and I was ready to push down anybody who stood in my way, and immediately she saw me. She introduced me as her older, saving grace sister to the man, and she introduced him as Barry's father. Barry's father? I was speechless, and I even discovered he lived in the same town as us, and I could not believe Bailey kept Barry from seeing his father for over a decade, and the poor boy there thinking something was wrong with him. Well, I found out why. He was already married, with 4 kids, and did not want anything to disrupt his nice little happy home. Bailey was his side chick, and he was with her whenever he missed her or had issues with his wife. Hearing that he was Barry's father absolutely caused me to explode. For the past years, I came up with different reasons why Barry's father was absent in his life, right from when he could talk. Honestly, I didn't blame the man for being a bad father. I blamed Bailey for making such a terrible mother. Even at her age, she still acted and lived like a teenager, which was disappointing. I mean, you might want to judge me for my actions, but I've never been so angry in my entire life. I don't remember when I started yelling at her and causing a scene right there in the mall, but I did. I told whoever cared to listen how much of a terrible mother she was, and I mentioned the child support in anger. Barry's father was pretty embarrassed, but he looked at her in shock like, let's say, he didn't know she had another child, an older one, and he didn't understand the whole child support talk, and then he went ahead to say he also gave child support for Barry right from the month he was born because he knew he would not be available in his life, but he didn't want him to lack. Oh boy. Long story short, he asked Bailey to explain what I was talking about, but she remained quiet. It just wasn't him. I wanted an explanation too, because I had never heard such a thing. You see, when Bailey said nothing, he raised his voice at her and left the shopping basket and walked out on us. It was enough to take in for one evening. So I kept questioning Bailey, and she ended up being physical and blamed me for ruining the life. She ran out after Barry's father, and by the time I got outside, she was simply nowhere to be found. At this point, I can't take it anymore. I'm going offline for a few days. I even took a break from work because it's just been so much to handle. Update number 3. Hey everyone, I've done what you asked me. I sued Bailey. I did it. And although I still feel bad for following that path, I think she deserves it and made me do it. I would have made this update last week, but I needed a break. 2 days after I met Bailey and Barry's father at the mall, Bailey came home and was so angry. She came yelling and banging at the door that early morning, and when I opened up the door, she attacked me and said I had ruined her life and destroyed her meal ticket. But I avoided her because I didn't want it to turn into a police case if the neighbors knew we were fighting again. It turned out that Barry's father absolutely shunned her after discovering she had another child and was spending both child support money on herself. Her boys were there, but she didn't care. She said she never asked me to take care of her boys, and if I expected that she would give me the child support she got from their fathers, I should have taken them to an orphanage. At this point, it was very clear to Barry that Bailey knew who his father was, and she kept him away from him. I knew Barry was an intelligent boy and tried to hide the incident at the mall from them, but Bailey ruined absolutely everything. She called me several names and abused me in front of the boys, and she was obviously tipsy, and she said a lot of nasty things. Right to her children's face. I wasn't expecting Barry to confront her, but he did. He wanted to know if she knew who his father was all this time, and without remorse, she said yes, she did. And after Barry confirmed, he ran out of the house and Jude ran after him. At that point, I've had enough. I told her I would be suing her in court, and she made jokes of it, and she even threatened that if I sued her, she would just countersue me for stealing her children, and she left. To ensure I had 100% foolproof chance in court, I contacted a lawyer and was affirmed that I had the upper hand. The good news is, as you read this, she's been served, and our court hearing is in exactly 4 days. I just hope it goes well, and we'll make another update after we return from court. If things go as planned, maybe ordering her to pay back all the child support she received and spent on herself will make her more responsible for her life decisions. Update number 4. Oh boy. Oh my gosh. I'm literally the happiest woman on earth right now. Everything went as planned, guys. And the court ruled in my favor. The judge was so mad that I single-handedly raised her sons for almost 10 years of my own while she was just hale and heart. And she got child support from both fathers but never contributed a dime to anything in the house. At first, Bailey claimed she was the one who lived with and took care of her children, but the judge could see through her blatant lies. One minute she claimed she was in another country, the next moment she insisted that she was in the same hometown. She went back and forth, and could not hold on to her lies because there were so many. When the judge asked Jude and Barry to testify, they confirmed everything that I've said. They admitted that Bailey only lived with us when she needed a place to stay, and they mentioned that she would steal from them and me sometimes. You see, Bailey was obviously unhappy that her children were testifying against her, and she even insisted that I had stolen her kids from her because she did not ask me to look after them. Hearing that even made the judge even more mad, and she told the judge that she used the child support, which was thousands of dollars every month, to help herself and get on her feet. The judge told her that the child support was never for her but for me because I cared for her sons, but she said she thought I did not need it. She was lying, absolutely lying, and she saw how hard I worked and how tired and stressed out I was every time that she came by to visit. Jude had a small, menial job, but I could not let him just contribute to the house when I knew he needed the money for many things as a teenager. Well, let's just say the judge dismissed her counterclaim and ordered her to pay me the exact amount she got from both father as child support and she would pay a fraction every month until she completed the payment, and she was no longer allowed to get child support from either father. She thought she would get out of it if she told the judge she wasn't working, but her plans failed. It was even an embarrassment for the judge to discover that she was not working, yet she depends on other people to take care of her issues. I went home rejoicing, and my nephews were happy as well. We knew our lives were about to get a bunch more easy, which would be a relief for me, and I believed everything would end there, but Bailey came to our house and called me a thief for stealing her kids. She asked the boys to follow her, but none of them agreed. When she realized no one was following her, she grabbed Barry and tried to run. But Jude and I stopped her. In that anger, she threw a vase at our full-screen television, which, by the way, broke. Surprisingly, Jude called the police, and they ended up arresting her. He also told them Bailey tried to kidnap Barry, and the police did not take that lightly. Yesterday, I did it. I got a restraining order, and she won't see her sons for a long time. I know it's extreme, but hey, it's my responsibility to protect them from any form of threat, even if it's their own biological mother. Hopefully, things will improve for us, and I'll focus more on saving for Jude's college. None of them will end up like their mother, not on my watch. Personally, I've cut all ties with her, but I won't stop her sons from seeing her if they want to. They said they want nothing to do with her, but you never know. I mean, you can't tell how things will turn out in the future. But it's pretty clear as for now, Bailey is out of our lives. So that's it, guys. I just want to thank everyone for all the support. I don't know what I would have done without you guys. Hopefully, I'll update again soon, and it'll be that Jude has finally gotten into college. All the best. Mr. Reddito here. An interruption before we hop into the opinion and the comments. I just want to say this story's very last update was just a couple months ago. So if there's ever any updates on this story, you guys will be the first to hear it, as I'm not exactly sure this is the last time that we have heard from Bailey. Yeah, she's out of the picture for now, but you never know. Alright, let's jump into Mr. Reddito Cam and see what's going on with some of these opinions.
So out of all the stories I've done this week, or maybe even this month, I can't think of another person in the story who I think deserves worse than Bailey. I mean, she abandoned her family. She basically caused her mother an early demise from the sky-high blood pressure of having to deal with Bailey her whole life. And let's not forget about her own kids, who she abandoned and said, you know what, just send them to an orphanage. I don't even care about those little brats. Meanwhile, she's there collecting all of this money that was supposed to be used on the children and letting another person, her sister, raise the kids, and even responding to OP and saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm out of the country, but she's really with a 50-year-old male who's cheating on his real family and having an affair, and he doesn't even know the level of deceit that she went by having another kid that she didn't even tell him about. I mean, Bailey was something else. Guys, let me know your thoughts about this one. I would read some comments, but there's no point because they were ripping Bailey to shreds. Post your thoughts down below if you were in OP's position. I know it could be very hard to just raise two kids that aren't really yours, but sending them to an orphanage, just like OP said, was so hard for her to do. She couldn't do it. What would you do? It's okay if you say, I'm going to send them to an orphanage because I'm not equipped to watch them. That's okay. It needs to be whatever is best for the kids. And in this case, OP wanted the kids. So it worked out, but we just have to realize Bailey was a nightmare. So I want to hear your opinions on this one. Let me know exactly what you're thinking. If you guys are new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito. I release a story every single day, so subscribe, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. But just remember, it's cool to be kind and don't be like Bailey.